Okay, this is a follow-up to the Sandy Hook lawsuit. I talked about the Sandy Hook lawsuit a while ago, and you know how civil lawsuits work. Okay, in civil court, there is no Sixth Amendment right to a speedy trial, so civil lawsuits take years. Okay, some can take as many as 10 years. And the video, which I'm going to post below, was my previous video on the Sandy Hook matter. I talked about several rifles. I think it was five guns. Yeah, Eric and Chad. I talked about several rifles that were available in 2012. That if the AR-15 was banned, or if companies didn't manufacture it, banned or not, or if the AR-15 never existed at all, period, it wasn't in existence. Several rifles that could have been used by the shooter, being the Mini 14, the M1 carbine, the SKS Model D, the AK furnitureless sporter with a 10-round magazine could have been used. You know, those AK rifles, you can get a 10-round mag, a 20-round mag, a 40-round mag, okay? I should watch the video again, right? I talked about the Kel-Tec rifle, the one that Nothing Fancy likes, yeah. Okay? And the lawsuit was basically saying that the manufacturers should have known better. They should have known that their product was going to be appealing. The trucks only come by when I make a video, I swear to God. The product, they should have known the product would be appealing to psychopaths. Truth be told, the AR-15 kills less people in the United States than anything. Okay? There are more people that fall down the stairs drunk, hit their head and die than are killed by the AR-15. Okay? And yes, they are used in mass shootings. But like I said, the shooting in Miami was a Mini 14. Okay? One of the shootings in Europe was a Mini 14. Okay? Now, the Miami 86 shooting I meant. And yes, a lot of people think grab the AR-15 to commit a mass shooting, and that's what gets the headlines, okay? In reality, you're more likely to be shot by a small frame revolver, chamber for 38 special or 22, that was cheaply made, is 50 years old, and has a serial number scratched off. You're most likely to be murdered by a guy with a knife. You're most likely to be murdered by a guy with an axe, because people tend to grab the weapon available to them. Guys in the hood, they go to the local gun dealer, they buy a 38 special revolver that's 40 years old, has been sold 12 times a year, is rusted shut, has never been cleaned, okay? That's what they tend to use, okay? Guys really don't go out to the FFL and go through a background check to get a $1,000 rifle. It doesn't happen anywhere near as often as you think. But they said that because they, I saw some advertisements on Bushmaster and related sites, your man card is reissued. Well, man card in the chest beating, guy, beer guzzling, okay, howling at the moon, okay, all that type of guy shit, okay. We don't consider killing children to be a manly activity, period. Okay, period. Doesn't matter if you're in the military, doesn't matter if you're in the police force, doesn't matter if you're just some guy that chugs beer and beats his chest and has a beard and, chops wood in the forest with an axe, okay? We don't consider getting a rifle and shooting little kids after you killed your own mother to be a manly activity, period. Okay, period. Okay? So, by saying your man card is reissued, okay, by calling it a patrol rifle, okay, that doesn't make a guy say, let me go use that to kill fucking children. And like I said, he could have used any rifle that was in the closet. Now, the lawsuit talked about several federal protections for gun companies, but in reality, there are several federal protections for all companies. As long as a company is making a product in accordance with the law, that company cannot be sued if their product is misused. Example, I do not have a license to sell alcohol. I can buy the alcohol myself and give it to you for free at my house at a party, but I don't have a right to sell alcohol. So if I were to get, a distillery going, and I were to start selling alcohol without a license from the city, from the state, if I did not have a license to make the alcohol, if I did not have a license to sell the alcohol, and I sold the alcohol anyway, and some guy got drunk and crashed his car and killed somebody, I could be sued, I could be imprisoned. Okay? If I give someone who is visibly under the age of 21 alcohol, so if I have friends and family at my house and I have a relative that I know for a fact is under 21, and I give him a lot of alcohol, and he gets drunk and kills somebody in a car accident, I can be sued, I can be imprisoned, okay? Bad things can happen to me. And the same thing goes for guns, okay? If I get some machinery in here and I start making guns without an FFL's license, without a gunsmith's license, and I start selling those guns online or selling those guns on the street, okay, and someone gets shot, I can be sued. But as long as the gun manufacturers or the alcohol manufacturers or the car manufacturers, okay, or the plastic bag manufacturers, as long as they are selling their product lawfully, which in this case would require gunsmith licenses, gun manufacturing licenses, all this shit with the federal government, okay, all these inspections they gotta have at their plants, all these, contracts they gotta have to ship the guns to the dealers, okay, and then the dealers sell to the public after background checks, okay. As long as they follow those actions, those laws, they cannot be sued. Period. Okay? Now, if Bushmaster said, this rifle is so great, you could kill 20 children in 3 seconds with it, they would get sued. Big time. Okay? If Bushmaster said, have you ever really, really, really wanted to kill your wife? Well, if you shoot her in the stomach with this, it'll take her 6 hours to die slowly. Okay? Then they'll get sued. Okay? But unless they visibly violated the law, you cannot sue them. You cannot jail them. Okay, and they're going to appeal. I don't know how far the appeal is going to go. But, and a similar lawsuit happened with the Aurora, Colorado shooting, where they said Lucky Gunner should have known this guy was a psychopath. How? If Lucky Gunner called the FBI every time a guy orders 1,000 rounds of ammunition, they'd be calling the FBI, 20 times a minute, maybe? More? Okay? So, and that is just the simple case here. Okay, you can't just fucking sue. Now, do I feel bad that kids were killed? Of course I do. I have kids in my family. I protect kids for a living. Of course I feel bad when a bunch of kids are killed. Okay? But my anger was not directed at the company that makes semi-automatic rifles with a license and sells them in accordance with federal law. Okay? My anger for the Sandy Hook massacre was simple. You have a person, in this case your 20-year-old adult son, who you know for a fact is a psychopath, and you're trying to get institutionalized. And yet you think it's a good idea to buy guns for him and teach him to use them. And if she was not killed, she would have been in a shitload of trouble, as I said in the previous video. She would have been looking at straw purchases, because she bought the gun herself, she signed for it herself, and she gave it to him knowing he shouldn't have had it. Now, there's a million people in this world that bought a gun for their family member. You buy a little 22 for your 10-year-old son. You buy a 22 for your 10-year-old daughter, okay? You buy a bolt action for your weight for your wife, okay? You buy a 30-06 hunting rifle for your husband, okay? People buy guns for close family members all the time. It's really not that big of a deal. But the straw purchase means you bought the gun yourself, You paid for it yourself. You filled out all the paperwork yourself, and you gave it to someone that you knew was not supposed to have it. And the definition of not supposed to have it means your 20-year-old son that lives in your house with you and is so fucking crazy that you are literally begging psychiatrists to put him away. Okay, that is the definition of a straw purchase. Okay, straw purchase doesn't necessarily mean my friend, the convicted felon, gives me $1,000 cash for a gun. Okay, straw purchase means I gave it to someone that I knew shouldn't have had it. That's why if you want to buy a gun, I'll take you to my FFL, but you're doing the fucking paperwork yourself. Period. Okay? Even if my own mother said she wanted to buy a gun, I would bring her down there myself and I would say, you do the fucking paperwork, okay? I don't want to be responsible for it. I mean, if I had a 10-year-old kid, I could take the .22 rifle, lock it up in my safe, in my room, and have him use it under my supervision, okay? But as far as that is concerned, fuck no. If you're an adult, buy your own damn gun. Because if the shit happens, I don't want to hear about it. Okay? I'll say my friend wanted a gun, I put him in the car, I drove him to the FFL, he gave the FFL his ID, he filled the paperwork, he paid for it, it was his, that's it. Okay? I don't want to deal with this shit. That's just me. Okay? But that being aside, the law is the law. And believe me, if someone in my family got killed, I would not blame the product, and I would not blame the product manufacturer. I would blame the person. Okay? That's why every bartender in America has 10 cab company phone numbers memorized. Because if a bartender is getting a guy drunk, and that guy starts walking outside, he doesn't want that guy to get in the car and drive and have an accident. Okay? If you do something wrong that can be illustrated in court, then you're in trouble. But unless the opposing party, in this case a plaintiff in a civil lawsuit, unless they can illustrate that you broke the law, you can't be punished. Okay, I'll give you a crazy example. 2 years ago I had a woman. She saw me in the street, she came up to me. She said, call the police, have the man arrested. I said, what man? So there was a man walking across the street, I didn't see it, she did. The man almost stumbled and he went into a place next to the bakery that sells coffee, breakfast things, little shit like that. Okay, one of the neighbors, you know what I mean, okay? I go there myself sometimes if I have to get water or iced tea if I'm really fucking hot. And I said, no. And I kept my eye on the little coffee place in case, a fucking chair came flying out the window or some shit. But what happened was, there was a man that had too much to drink. And the next morning, he stumbled into a coffee place to get himself some breakfast, okay? Why am I gonna call the police, have him arrested, have him searched, have him handcuffed, have him transported to the jail, have him put in court, okay? Have him charged with a crime because I can't illustrate he did something wrong. Now, maybe he is drunk. And maybe they could get him if they wanted to on public intoxication. But I gotta call it back up. If it's not a critical emergency, back will take an hour to get there. Okay? And if I take the cops in the diner and say this guy's drunk, I heard third hand, a woman told me she saw this guy drunk. Okay? If they do the breathalyzer test and he's a drop of alcohol below 0.08, they're not getting on public intoxication. And unless he is hurting somebody, they're not going to buy, you know what I mean? You can't just have people fucking arrested. Okay? You can't just have people sued. Okay? In this world, when you say you want to sue someone, or when you say you want someone thrown in jail, the number one question is, what did you see them do that was wrong? And is it worth it? Okay, now Bushmaster calls these rifles the Patrol, and we've seen the Patrol, the Home Defender, the Safeguarder, the man's rifle, the woman's rifle, okay, the American Protector. Okay, we've seen this shit on the internet. Okay? This gun is called the patrol model. This gun is called the protector. For Christ's fucking sake, Taurus has a revolver, they call it the judge. Assuming you can call it a gun, but okay, that's neither there. But what did they do wrong? Okay? If like I said, if they said, hey guys, if you want to kill a bunch of fucking 6-year-olds at an elementary school, you gotta buy this rifle. This rifle is the best rifle in the world for killing 6-year-old kids. Problem. Okay? Guy calls Bushmaster on the phone and says, do me a favor, I'm gonna mail you a check for $1,000. You're gonna mail me a rifle to my house. Problem. Okay? There has to be an underlying issue. This is America. We can't put guys in jail and we can't sue guys unless you can prove there's something wrong. Okay? In civil court, you normally gotta prove 51% the guy did something wrong. In criminal court, you gotta prove damn near 100% the guy did something wrong. And if you're accusing somebody, it's your responsibility. Okay? That's what the law says. The law is very clear on that. Very clear on that. 100% of the proof is your responsibility, period. And that was not met, so the lawsuit was thrown out. Thank you.